Chosen one, why are you still awake at 3 a.m. with that weight crushing your chest? Why does every victory in your life feel like it came with a price tag that nearly broke you? Why have you carried burdens that would have destroyed lesser souls, yet you're still here, still breathing, still believing when logic says quit? Stop, right there. What if I told you that every sleepless night, every tear you've cried in secret, every moment you wanted to give up but didn't, what if all of that was evidence in a trial you didn't even know was happening? Picture this, a courtroom in heaven, majestic beyond human comprehension. Your entire life laid out like evidence on a cosmic table. Every betrayal that cut deep, every door that slammed in your face, every time people counted you out, every night you fell to your knees wondering if God had forgotten your address. But then, the silence breaks. The judge of all creation rises from his throne. The angels lean forward, time itself holds its breath, and with a voice that shakes the foundations of eternity, he declares over your life, you passed. You passed, not barely, not by accident. You passed with colors flying, with scars that tell stories of divine endurance, with a faith that hell itself couldn't kill. If this message found you today, if your finger stopped scrolling at these exact words, this is not coincidence. This is divine appointment. The Almighty has been waiting for this moment to tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your future. Comment right now, I passed. Say it out loud so every demon that tried to destroy you hears it echo through the spiritual realm. Type it so heaven can witness your declaration. Before we pause, I want to honor every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. But here's what's about to rock your world. God isn't just telling you that you passed. He's opening his eternal checkbook. Before this hour is over, I'll show you what funding forever really means, and it's bigger than money, bigger than your wildest dreams, bigger than every limitation this world tried to place on your destiny. The trial is over, the verdict is in, and your life as you know it just ended. How many nights have you laid in that bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone would even notice if you were gone? How many times have you sat at your kitchen table, calculator in hand, wondering if your social security will stretch to cover both your heart medication and groceries this month? How many mornings have you looked in the mirror and whispered, God, did my life even matter? Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to cut deep before it heals. Those weren't just hard times you walked through. Those were tests. Divine examinations that heaven itself was watching with breathless anticipation. You buried your spouse of 43 years. You held their hand as they took their last breath. And something inside you died too. The house that once echoed with laughter now echoes with silence so loud it screams. You set the table for two out of habit. Then remember, it's just you now. The world calls that grief, but heaven calls it the first test. The test of faith when everything familiar gets stripped away. You got that pink slip at 62. After 37 years of loyalty, they replaced you with someone half your age who doesn't even know your name. You sat in your car in that parking lot and wept tears that came from places deeper than your eyes. The world calls that rejection, but heaven calls it the second test, the test of identity, when the world tells you you're worthless. Your body started betraying you, didn't it? Knees that carried you through decades of life now scream with every step. Hands that worked tirelessly now shake when you try to button your shirt. You swallow pills that cost more than your first apartment rent and still wake up tired. The world calls that aging, but heaven calls it the third test, the test of trust, when your own flesh becomes your enemy. Psalm 34:18 declares, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Crushed in spirit. That's not just poetic language. That's medical terminology from heaven's perspective. You've been in the divine ICU, and God has been your attending physician through every sleepless night. But here's what's going to shatter every lie you've believed about those dark seasons. You weren't falling apart. You were being torn down so God could rebuild you with materials that can't be destroyed. Think about Job. This man lost everything in a single day. His children, his wealth, his health. Even his wife told him to curse God and die. For months he sat in ashes, scraping his sores with broken pottery. His friends accused him of secret sins. Everyone around him said he was finished. But Job 42:10 tells us the rest of the story. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice as much. You thought you were being punished, but you were being positioned. Every loss was making room. Every ending was creating space for a beginning so magnificent that your human mind couldn't have conceived it. Joseph knew this truth. Sold into slavery by his own brothers at 17, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in prison for years. But Genesis 50:20 reveals heaven's strategy. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Your pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation for a purpose so significant that it required 40, 50, 60 years of character development. Every scar on your body, every line etched into your face by worry and tears, every gray hair that marks another year of survival, heaven doesn't call them signs of decline. Heaven calls them proof you passed. You thought you barely survived those tests. You told yourself you just got lucky. You minimized your strength, your resilience, your supernatural ability to keep going when everything in you wanted to quit. But listen to me, chosen one. You didn't barely survive. You graduated, magna cum laude, with honors that only heaven recognizes. That financial crisis that should have destroyed you, you found a way. That health scare that had doctors shaking their heads, you're still here. That depression so dark you couldn't see tomorrow. You chose to see it anyway. That wasn't luck. That wasn't willpower. That was divine DNA expressing itself through human flesh. The enemy whispered that those struggles meant God had abandoned you. He lied. Those struggles meant God was preparing you for something so powerful, so impactful, so eternal, that it required testing under fire. Pure gold doesn't emerge from comfortable circumstances. It emerges from the furnace. You've been in God's furnace, and you came out refined. Not refined a little bit. Completely refined. Ready for divine funding that operates on principles the natural world cannot understand. But here's the question that will determine everything about your next chapter. Will you continue to see yourself as someone who barely survived? Or will you embrace the truth that you are someone heaven has personally graduated for greatness? Type 777 in the comments right now. That's heaven's code for completion. Not just any completion, your completion. Your graduation from the school of hard knocks into the university of divine favor. Declare with your fingers what your heart is just beginning to understand. You're ready for what's next. Because what's next isn't just restoration. What's next is resurrection. And dead things don't get resurrected unless they carry something the world desperately needs to stay alive. You think God's funding is about your electric bill getting paid on time. You think it's about finally having enough money in your checking account to sleep through the night. Dear chosen one, that's like thinking the ocean is just about filling your water glass. Let me shatter that small thinking right now. When the Almighty opens his checkbook, he's not writing checks from Chase Bank. He's drawing from the storehouses of heaven, where there's no such thing as insufficient funds, where abundance isn't rationed, where your needs were budgeted before the foundation of the world. God's funding is multidimensional. It flows like living water through every crack of your existence. First, he's funding your peace. You know that knot in your stomach that wakes you up at 4 a.m.? That voice that whispers, what if this happens? What if that fails? What if you run out? That voice just got served an eviction notice. Philippians 4-7 promises the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. Not occasional peace, not weekend peace. Peace that stands guard like a fortress around your thoughts. How many decades have you carried tomorrow's fears in today's heart? How many nights have you robbed from sleep to worry about problems that never came? That burden wasn't yours to carry. God's funding your freedom from it. Second, He's funding your health. That exhaustion that's been your constant companion, that weariness that settled into your bones like winter fog, is about to lift. Isaiah 40-31 declares, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles." This isn't about feeling good for a day. This is about divine vitality flowing through vessels that the world wrote off as worn out. Your body isn't expiring, dear one. It's being renewed by the same power that raised Christ from the dead. Third, He's funding your purpose. You thought your story was ending, didn't you? Thought your impact was over, your influence dried up, your voice no longer relevant. The enemy lied to you. Psalm 92-14 thunders this truth. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. Not was, not were. Will. Present continuous action. Your purpose isn't past tense. It's present power. There's a light being kindled in your later years that will outshine every flame you've ever carried. Why? Because now you know the cost of oil. Now you understand what it means to keep burning when the winds of life try to extinguish you. Fourth, He's funding your legacy. This isn't just about you anymore. Psalm 112-2 promises, "Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed." Every prayer you've whispered over sleeping grandchildren, every sacrifice you've made that no one saw, every moment you chose faith over fear, is about to compound with interest across generations. Your obedience today is funding blessings for bloodlines you'll never meet. But let me paint you a picture of what this funding looked like in action. Joseph didn't just survive 7 years of famine. He was funded to prepare for it. While others scrambled and starved, he distributed abundance from storehouses that defied every economic principle. Genesis 41-57 tells us all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph. The whole world. That's what happens when God funds your assignment. Abraham left everything familiar with no GPS, no map, no guarantee except God's word. Hebrews 11-8 says he went, even though he did not know where he was going. But every step was funded, every meal provided, every promise fulfilled. He became the father of many nations, not because he had a plan, but because he was funded by the planner. Noah built an ark when rain didn't exist. For decades he hammered wood while his neighbors mocked. But every nail was funded, every board divinely provided. When the floods came, his faithfulness didn't just save his family, it preserved humanity itself. Your situation might look impossible to human eyes, but you're not operating in human economy anymore. God's checkbook isn't from Wall Street. It's from the treasury of heaven, where bankruptcy is a foreign concept, where recession is just another word for redirection, where your needs were anticipated before you were born. His signature isn't ink on paper. His signature is written in the fabric of your DNA, carved into the chambers of your heart, stamped with the authority of the cross where he purchased your complete provision. You've been trying to fund your own life for too long, calculating, worrying, rationing hope, like it might run out. But chosen one, you don't have to play financial advisor to the Almighty anymore. You don't have to be the CEO of your own survival. The funding is approved, the account is open, the resources are flowing. But here's the question that will determine whether you access this divine provision or keep struggling in your own strength. How do you activate it? How do you move from knowing about God's funding to living in it? Stay with me. What I'm about to reveal will unlock every storehouse heaven has prepared for your life. Dear chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. How many times have you stood in your bathroom mirror at 6 a.m., looked at those lines around your eyes and whispered, "God, am I done? Have I missed my chance?" How many times have you felt the tremor in your hands and thought, "These aren't the hands that can build kingdoms anymore"? How many nights have you laid awake, wondering if your best chapters are buried behind you with your youth? Stop right there. What you're seeing as weakness, heaven sees as weaponry. You think David walked onto that battlefield feeling confident. This boy was maybe 17 years old, standing before a giant who had terrorized seasoned warriors for 40 days. Goliath was 9 feet tall, armor weighing 125 pounds, spear tip alone 15 pounds of iron death. Every muscle in that Philistine's body was carved for destruction. But David had something Goliath didn't. 5 smooth stones and a lifetime of being underestimated. When King Saul offered David his armor, the boy said no. Why? Because God doesn't work through what looks impressive to men. He works through what looks impossible to the world, but inevitable to faith. That sling in David's hand wasn't just a shepherd's tool. It was heaven's chosen weapon. And those 5 stones, they represented 5 chances for God to show up, but he only needed 1. Your gray hair is your sling. Your wisdom earned through decades of fire is your stone. Every scar on your heart, every tear you've cried, every night you survived when quitting would have been easier. That's your ammunition from the armory of heaven. Moses stood before Pharaoh at 80 years old with a speech impediment, leading the most powerful empire on earth with a stutter. Exodus 4:10 tells us Moses said, "I am slow of speech and tongue." But God replied in verse 11, "Who gave human beings their mouths? Is it not I, the Lord?" Your stutter became his megaphone. Your weakness became his microphone to the world. You've been told your age disqualifies you. You've been told your limitations make you irrelevant. You've been told to step aside and let the young ones take over. But listen to what Isaiah 54:17 declares with the authority of heaven itself. "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." No weapon. Not some weapons. Not most weapons. No weapon. That diagnosis they gave you at 65 that made you feel finished? It's not prospering. That financial collapse that wiped out your retirement at 72? It's not prospering. That loneliness that crept in after your spouse went home to glory? It's not prospering. Every single attack that should have destroyed you has failed. Why? Because you're not just flesh and blood stumbling through your golden years. You are a weapon forged in the furnace of faithfulness, tempered by trials, sharpened by sorrow, and now ready for heaven's final deployment. Think about this. What giant is standing in front of you today? What impossible mountain is mocking your faith? What voice is screaming that you're too old, too tired, too broken to matter anymore? That giant doesn't know what you know. It doesn't see what you carry. Every betrayal you survived taught you discernment. Every loss you endured built your compassion. Every financial struggle developed your faith. Every health battle proved God's healing power. Every lonely night revealed his presence. You thought your weakness disqualified you, but it's the very place God's strength shines brightest. 2 Corinthians 12:9 declares, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Perfect, not adequate, not good enough, perfect. Your limitations are God's launching pad. Your struggles are his platform. Your age is his advantage. While younger generations chase strength in the flesh, you've learned to lean on strength from the Spirit. While they trust in their own abilities, you've discovered the power of depending on his. While they fear failure, you've already failed and watched God turn ashes into beauty. You are not retiring, chosen one. You are being repositioned. You're not slowing down. You're being loaded up. You're not past your prime. You're entering your power. That walker isn't a sign of weakness. It's your staff of authority like Moses carried. Those reading glasses aren't symbols of decline. They're your prophetic lenses to see what others miss. That slower pace isn't limitation. It's the measured walk of someone who knows where they're going. If you've ever felt too weak, too late, too broken, drop a fire emoji right now. That's your way of declaring to every force of hell, God's not done with me. But here's what's about to shake you to your core. You think you survived those battles by accident. You think you made it through 70, 80, 90 years of warfare by luck. What you're about to discover will prove that every battle was strategic preparation for what God is releasing in your life right now. You've been living in survival mode for so long. You forgot what it feels like to breathe without that crushing weight on your chest. Every morning for the past 20, 30, maybe 40 years, you wake up and the first thought isn't gratitude, it's calculation. How much do I owe? How much do I have? How much longer can I keep this up? But what if I told you that this morning, this very morning, was the last time you'll ever wake up carrying that burden? Imagine it. Tomorrow's sunrise breaking through your window, and for the first time in decades, you open your eyes without that familiar knot twisting in your stomach. The bills that used to haunt your mailbox? Covered. The fear that whispered, "What if?" in the darkness? Silenced forever. The future that looked like a question mark? Now it's an exclamation point of divine provision. This isn't wishful thinking, chosen one. This is prophetic declaration. Listen to what the Almighty spoke through Malachi 3:10. "Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Floodgates. Not a gentle stream, not a modest trickle. Floodgates of blessing so intense, so overwhelming, that your biggest problem won't be having enough, it'll be finding room to contain what God is pouring out. But here's what breaks my heart about so many of God's chosen ones. You've been so beaten down by life's storms that you can't even imagine abundance anymore. You've accepted scarcity as your permanent address. You've made peace with just getting by when the Creator of the universe designed you for overflow. Why do you think you've survived everything you've survived? The divorce that should have destroyed you? The job loss that should have broken you? The diagnosis that should have ended you? You think that was luck? You think that was coincidence? That was preparation. God wasn't just keeping you alive, He was keeping you qualified. Every storm that tried to sink your ship only taught you how to navigate deeper waters. Every setback that felt like rejection was actually redirection towards something greater. And now, right now, the Judge of all creation is declaring over your life. You passed the test. You proved your faith in the fire. You stood when others fell. You believed when others doubted. You're ready for funding that never runs dry. Jesus Himself addressed this when He said in Matthew 6:34, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Not because tomorrow doesn't matter, but because when God funds your life, tomorrow is already handled. The rent for next month, already covered. The medication you need, already provided. The crisis that hasn't even happened yet, already solved. You've been carrying tomorrow's worries with today's strength, and it's been crushing you. But when God takes over your funding, you don't carry tomorrow anymore. Tomorrow carries you. Think about David when he wrote Psalm 23:5. "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Picture that scene. David's enemies are watching the same ones who counted him out, who said he'd never amount to anything, who whispered behind his back that he was finished. And there he sits, at a banquet table overflowing with abundance, while they watch in stunned silence. That's your story unfolding right now. Every person who wrote you off, every voice that said you were too old, too tired, too broken, they're about to witness the most dramatic comeback in your family's history. Not because you worked harder, not because you got lucky, but because the King of Kings just approved your funding for life. But let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. God isn't just funding your survival, He's funding your overflow. He's not just paying your bills, He's rewriting your entire financial DNA. When God funds a life, He doesn't operate by earthly economics. He doesn't calculate based on your credit score or your age or your past mistakes. He calculates based on His infinite resources and your infinite worth in His eyes. You've been living paycheck to paycheck, But God's about to introduce you to blessing. You've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, but heaven's about to pay them both and give you the deed to the house. The same God who fed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish is looking at your empty bank account and seeing unlimited potential. The same God who turned water into wine is looking at your lack and seeing an opportunity to demonstrate his power. The same God who made the walls of Jericho fall with a shout is about to make the walls of your financial prison crumble with his decree. And here's what's going to happen when those around you see this transformation. They're going to ask questions. They're going to want to know what changed. How did you go from struggling to soaring? How did you go from worried to confident? How did you go from barely making it to abundantly living it? And you're going to tell them the truth. I stopped trying to fund my own life and let God take over the account. But here's the part that most people miss. This divine funding doesn't just change your bank account, it changes your bloodline. The generational curses of poverty that have haunted your family tree for decades, they stop with you. The cycle of lack that passed from parent to child like some inherited disease, it dies in your generation. Your grandchildren won't know what it means to worry about money because their inheritance was secured the day you said yes to God's funding plan. Your legacy won't be one of struggle, it'll be one of overflow. And yet, there is one final layer to this divine funding that most believers never discover. Something that makes this not just abundant, but permanent. Something that ensures this blessing doesn't fluctuate with the stock market or disappear with economic downturns. Are you ready to discover what makes God's funding eternal? Because what I'm about to reveal will transform not just your finances, but your understanding of who you really are in the kingdom of heaven. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You think what just happened to you is temporary relief. You think God opened his wallet for a season, wrote you a check to get you through, and then it's back to struggling on your own. You think this funding has an expiration date like everything else in your life that started good and ended bitter. You're wrong. Dead wrong. What God just activated over your life isn't a program. It's not a blessing with terms and conditions. It's not aid that runs out when the budget gets tight. What heaven just released over your family line is a covenant, an eternal, blood-sealed, unbreakable covenant that will outlive your great-great-grandchildren. Deuteronomy 7-9 thunders this truth. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. 1,000 generations. Do the math. That's roughly 20,000 years of divine funding flowing through your bloodline. Your sacrifice today is setting up your family's victory 2 centuries from now. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. Those prayers you whispered at 2 a.m. when your children were breaking your heart. Those desperate cries when your grandkids were making choices that terrified you. Those weren't just prayers, dear one. They were seeds. And right now, in bedrooms across America, those seeds are sprouting in ways you'll never see but heaven will never forget. Your granddaughter, who's struggling with addiction. Your prayer from 1987 just activated in her spirit. Your grandson who's lost his way. That night you wept over his future just became his supernatural intervention. The covenant doesn't just fund you, it funds every name that carries your DNA. Think about Esther, one young woman, one moment of courage, one decision to risk everything for her people. Queen Esther 4:14 asked the question that changed history. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? She said yes to her moment, and an entire nation lived. Millions of lives saved because one woman understood her covenant moment. That's you, right now. Your yes to this covenant isn't just changing your bank account, it's rewriting your family tree. It's breaking generational curses that have haunted your lineage for decades. It's establishing generational blessings that will make your descendants millionaires in ways that money can't measure. Your name is written on doors you haven't seen yet. College acceptance letters for grandchildren not yet born. Business opportunities that will skip 2 generations and land in the hands of your great-grandson. Healing that will manifest in your daughter's daughter when she needs it most. The covenant doesn't operate on your timeline. It operates on eternity's schedule. You thought your struggles were about you paying bills, getting by, making it through another month. But heaven was playing chess while you were worried about checkers. Every sleepless night you endured wasn't just personal suffering, it was covenant sacrifice. Every tear you cried wasn't just pain. It was liquid investment in a future you'll never see, but your bloodline will inherit. Stop thinking small. Stop thinking temporary. Stop thinking survival. You thought this was just about you making it. But heaven says, I'm funding your family, your legacy, your name forever. The enemy tried to bankrupt your bloodline. He attacked your finances, your health, your relationships, thinking if he could break you, he could stop what was coming through your family line. But he made one fatal mistake. He didn't understand that your pain was actually building the foundation for an eternal covenant. Every attack just deepened the roots of blessing that will feed your family tree for 1,000 generations. Your children may not see it yet. Your grandchildren might still be struggling. But the covenant is working underground, building pressure, creating divine momentum that will explode into their lives when they need it most. Your sacrifice today is their supernatural tomorrow. If you receive this covenant, if something in your spirit is trembling with recognition right now, say it with me. Forever funded. Don't whisper it, declare it. Type it in the comments so heaven can witness your acceptance. Shout it so every generation of your family, past and future, can hear your faith echoing through eternity. Forever funded, because chosen one, you just signed the most important contract in human history. And the benefits never expire. But understanding your covenant is just the beginning. Because now that heaven has made you a promise that spans millennia, you need to know exactly what that means for the next 24 hours of your life. Dear chosen one, while you thought you were fighting alone in your kitchen at 2 a.m., wondering why sleep wouldn't come, the courtroom of heaven was in session. Angels were being dispatched. Your tears were being collected in golden bowls according to Revelation 5-8, where it says the prayers of God's holy people are held as precious incense before the throne. But you didn't see it, did you? You saw the depression that crept in like fog, thick and suffocating. You felt the weight pressing down on your chest night after night, making you wonder if this was just how life was supposed to feel. Empty. Heavy, like you were carrying invisible chains that got heavier with each passing year. That wasn't natural aging, beloved. That was warfare. The enemy knew something about your destiny that you didn't. He saw the anointing on your life before you ever felt it stirring. So he deployed his arsenal early. John 8:44 tells us the devil is a liar and the father of lies. His first weapon wasn't temptation, it was deception. He whispered the same lie in your ear for decades. You're not enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not young enough, not spiritual enough, not worthy enough. How many times did that voice echo in your mind when you looked in the mirror? How many opportunities did you let slip by because that whisper convinced you to stay small, stay quiet, stay hidden? But here's what hell didn't want you to know. Every attack was actually evidence of your calling. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. He doesn't send nightmares to people who pose no threat to his kingdom. Those 3 a.m. terrors that jolted you awake, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. That wasn't random. That was spiritual reconnaissance. Daniel understood this. When King Darius threw him into the lion's den, it looked like certain death. But Daniel 6:22 records his testimony. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. While Daniel saw hungry predators, God saw an opportunity to display his protection. The very place meant for his destruction became the stage for his deliverance. Your lion's den had a different shape, didn't it? Maybe it was that diagnosis that should have terrified you, but somehow you found peace. Maybe it was that financial crisis that should have broken you, but provision appeared from nowhere. Maybe it was that betrayal that should have destroyed your faith, but instead, it deepened your trust in God. The attacks that should have broken you only exposed your anointing. That's why you passed. But the war wasn't just external. The most vicious battles happened in the secret chambers of your mind. Those thoughts that told you to give up, that convinced you your prayers weren't being heard, that made you question if God even knew your name. Every senior citizen watching this knows that particular brand of loneliness. When your children grow up and move away, when your spouse goes home to glory, when your body starts betraying you, one joint at a time. The world tells you this is just the natural order of things. But chosen one, what if I told you those seasons of isolation weren't abandonment? They were preparation. In the wilderness, Moses learned to hear God's voice above the noise of a million complaining voices. In the cave, David wrote psalms that would comfort billions. In prison, Joseph developed the character that would save nations. Your wilderness, your cave, your prison, they weren't punishments, they were classrooms. The enemy thought he was wearing you down, but God was building you up. Every sleepless night was training you to pray without ceasing. Every financial struggle was teaching you that your provider isn't your paycheck, it's your Father. Every health scare was showing you that your life isn't measured in heartbeats, but in moments of faith. The invisible war was fought over your identity. Would you believe you're just an aging human counting down days? Or would you remember you're an eternal being temporarily housed in mortal flesh? Hell fought hard to make you forget, but heaven fought harder to make you remember. The constant whisper of not enough was being countered by God's thunderous declaration, more than enough. While the enemy was planting seeds of doubt, the Holy Spirit was cultivating seeds of destiny. Every tear that fell was watering ground that would soon bloom with purpose. You survived what should have destroyed you. You endured what should have defeated you. You kept believing when logic said quit. That wasn't human willpower, dear one. That was divine protection operating behind the scenes of your life. But there's one mark, one spiritual signature that proves beyond any doubt that you're funded forever. It's been developing in you through every trial, every test, every moment you chose faith over fear. And when you see it, when you recognize this mark that hell has been desperately trying to hide from you, everything about your future will snap into perfect focus. What is this mark that separates the chosen from the comfortable? Listen carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered about those scars you've been hiding. You think your wounds disqualify you? You think your struggles make you damaged goods? You've got it backwards. There are 3 unmistakable marks that identify those whose lives God has decided to fund forever. And if you carry even one of these marks, everything you thought you knew about your worth is about to be rewritten. But here's what breaks my heart. Most of you have been ashamed of the very things that heaven celebrates. You've been covering up what God calls credentials. You've been apologizing for what makes you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Stop hiding. It's time to unveil what God has been marking on your life. The first mark. Scars turned into seals. Look at your hands right now. Really look at them. See those lines, those marks of time and trial. You think those are signs of aging, of number. Those are seals of approval from the Almighty Himself. Every scar on your soul tells a story of survival. Every wound that should have destroyed you became proof that you carry something hell cannot kill. You didn't just survive that betrayal, that loss, that season when everything fell apart. You were marked by it. Think about Thomas. When Jesus appeared after the resurrection, what did Thomas need to see? The scars. John 20:27 records Jesus saying, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side." The scars weren't removed. They were revealed. They were proof of victory, not defeat. Your depression that lasted 3 years, that's a seal of endurance. That divorce that nearly broke you, that's a mark of resilience. That financial collapse that left you eating beans from a can, that's evidence that you can survive what would destroy ordinary people. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every scar you carry gives you authority to heal the same wound in others. Your pain wasn't pointless. It was prophetic. It was preparing you to carry healing to those who are bleeding right now. God doesn't fund the unmarked. He funds the tested. He funds the scarred. He funds those who've walked through fire and came out carrying the scent of heaven instead of smoke. The second mark, presence that shifts atmospheres. You feel it, don't you? That strange thing that happens when you walk into a room. Conversations shift. Tension breaks. Children run to you without knowing why. Even animals sense something different about you. You've been carrying this your whole life, haven't you? People tell you their deepest secrets in grocery store checkout lines. Strangers ask you to pray for them in hospital waiting rooms. Your own grandchildren calm down when you hold them, even when they're inconsolable for everyone else. That's not coincidence. That's the presence of the Almighty radiating through your being. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, Exodus 34-30 tells us his face was so radiant that the Israelites couldn't look at him. He had to wear a veil. But you don't need a veil. You need to recognize what you're carrying. You've been funded with a presence that carries peace into chaos, hope into despair, faith into doubt. When you speak blessing over someone, things change. When you pray over a situation, breakthrough comes. When you walk into a room full of arguing people, somehow the shouting stops. That's not your personality. That's your anointing. God has funded your very presence with supernatural authority. The third mark, the voice heaven answers. Here's the mark that terrifies hell most. Your prayers don't just bounce off the ceiling, they move mountains. Your words don't just float into empty air. They reshape reality. How many times have you prayed for something impossible and watched it happen? How many doors have opened after you spoke faith over them? How many hearts have softened after you declared breakthrough? Your voice carries unusual weight because it's been tuned to heaven's frequency through years of testing. James 5:16 declares, "The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective, not hopeful, effective." You've been given blank checks, signed by faith. When you speak God's promises, heaven backs up your words. When you declare breakthrough, the Almighty moves to make it happen. When you pray protection over your family, angels take their positions. But here's what most people miss. This authority didn't come cheap. It was purchased with tears, refined through trials, authenticated through endurance. God only gives this level of access to voices he can trust. Voices that have proven they'll speak his heart, not their own agenda. Your words are now legal tender in the courts of heaven. Every prayer you pray is underwritten by the God who owns everything. Every declaration you make carries the full faith and credit of the kingdom of heaven. Here's your AHA moment, chosen one. These marks aren't curses, they are confirmations. Proof that God is underwriting your life forever. The scars that shame you are seals of approval. The presence that puzzles you is power from on high. The voice that surprises you with its authority is heaven's investment in your future. You've been marked, sealed, and funded by the Almighty himself. And now the question that will determine everything. Will you keep hiding these marks? Or will you finally step into the authority they represent? If you carry these marks, if you recognize yourself in this divine description, type in the comments, marked and funded. Don't whisper it, declare it. Let heaven and hell know that you've finally understood what God has been building in you all along. But understanding your marks is just the beginning. Because what God does with marked and funded chosen ones will blow your mind. Listen to me, chosen one. You think God's funding stops with you? You think this divine provision is just about your bills getting paid, your dreams coming alive, your peace being restored. You're thinking too small. Your life is not a single note played once and forgotten. Your life is a symphony that echoes across generations, reverberating through bloodlines you'll never meet, touching hearts that won't beat for another 100 years. When Abraham was 100 years old, a century on this earth, God didn't just give him Isaac, he gave him nations. Genesis 17:5 declares, "No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." At 100, when the world said he was finished, God said he was just getting started. But here's what will shake you to your core. You are Abraham in this generation. That prayer you whispered over your wandering grandchild at 2 a.m. last Tuesday. Heaven didn't just hear it, heaven banked it, with interest, compounding daily in the economy of eternity. Those sacrifices you made in silence, working double shifts so your kids could go to college, skipping meals so they could eat, staying in a loveless marriage because you believed in covenant you thought nobody noticed. You thought it was all for nothing when they walked away, when they forgot your birthday, when they stopped calling. But every tear you shed in secret became liquid gold in heaven's vault. Every prayer you prayed through gritted teeth became legal tender in the courts of the Almighty. You weren't just funding their present, you were purchasing their future. Deuteronomy 7-9 thunders this truth. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him. 1,000 generations. Your faithfulness today is writing checks that your great-great-great-grandchildren will cash 2 centuries from now. You've been thinking like a mortal, but you've been investing like an immortal. That addiction your son is fighting right now, your prayers from 1987 are still working on his behalf. That granddaughter who won't speak to the family, your intercession is pursuing her through dimensions she can't even see. That great-grandson who isn't even born yet. You're already funding his breakthrough with your tears, your faith, your relentless refusal to give up on family. Psalm 112 paints the picture. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Their children, not just your children, but their children's children's children. Your uprightness today is purchasing mightiness for bloodlines that stretch into eternity. But here's where it gets controversial. Here's where hell trembles at what I'm about to say. You think you failed as a parent because your kids rebelled. You think you failed as a grandparent because the family scattered. You think your legacy is broken because the next generation doesn't follow Jesus the way you do. Wrong. Dead wrong. Your legacy isn't measured by their immediate response. It's measured by heaven's eternal response to your faithful prayers. Romans 11:29 declares, God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. That means the spiritual inheritance you've deposited into your family line can never be withdrawn, never be cancelled, never be declared null and void. Every prayer you prayed over an empty bed when they didn't come home. Every time you bit your tongue instead of saying what you really felt. Every dollar you gave when you couldn't afford it. Every moment you chose forgiveness over bitterness when they broke your heart. All of it is earning eternal dividends in accounts they don't even know exist yet. Your tears are their trust fund. Your prayers are their pension plan. Your faithfulness is their inheritance that no recession can touch, no bankruptcy can seize, no enemy can steal. Think about this. Right now, somewhere in America, there's a 5-year-old walking away from a life of destruction because their great-grandmother long gone prayed over them in 1943. There's a teenager choosing life over suicide because their grandfather's prayers from the 1962nd are still echoing in the spiritual realm. There's a prodigal coming home to Jesus because their grandmother's tears are still liquid and active in heaven's economy. Your influence doesn't die when you do. It multiplies. But here's the question that should hit you like lightning. If God is funding your legacy across generations, if your faithfulness today is purchasing breakthrough for bloodlines you'll never see, then what kind of deposits are you making right now? What kind of spiritual inheritance are you leaving? What kind of prayers are you praying that will still be working 200 years from today? Because chosen one, you're not just funded for now, you're funded into forever, and forever has just begun. What happens when you finally understand that your greatest investment isn't in the stock market? It's in the souls of generations you'll never meet, but whose destinies you're shaping with every prayer you pray. Today, can you hear it? That knocking at your door at 2 a.m. It's not a burglar, it's not your neighbor. It's fear, the ultimate debt collector, and he's come for what he thinks you owe. He's got a briefcase full of bills with your name on them, past due, your dreams, final notice, your purpose, overdue, your breakthrough. And he's standing there, pounding relentlessly, screaming through the keyhole, "You're too old, your time's up, you missed your shot." But wait, do you hear that rumbling in the distance? That's not thunder. That's the footsteps of the Almighty walking down the corridors of eternity. And he's got something in his hand. It's not a payment plan. It's not a negotiation. It's a sledgehammer. And he's about to demolish every lie that's been collecting interest in your mind for decades. Romans 8:31 thunders across the battlefield. If God is for us, who can be against us? Not might be for us, not could be for us, is for us. Present tense, active, unshakable. And when God steps into your corner, every debt collector in hell starts running for the exits. You've been living like you owe the universe something, haven't you? Like your age is a debt, like your mistakes are mortgage payments that never end. Like your struggles are proof that you're bankrupt in the eyes of heaven. But what if I told you that every bill fear has been waving in your face has already been paid? Fear whispers lack, God funds abundance. Fear whispers death, God funds life. Fear whispers end, God funds forever. That fear that's been haunting your 70-year-old bones, telling you your productive years are over. God looks at those same bones and sees the framework for miracles he's about to build. That terror that grips your 80-year-old heart when you think about tomorrow. The Almighty holds that heart in his hands and calls it his masterpiece, still under construction. But fear is a liar and a coward. He only shows up when breakthrough is about to break through. He only starts collecting when heaven's about to start depositing. Think about it, when has fear ever knocked on your door during the easy seasons? Never. He shows up when God's about to show out. Moses was 80 when fear came knocking. You stutter, you can't speak, you're too old to lead. But God tore up that bill and handed Moses a rod that would split seas. David was hiding in caves when fear came collecting. You're a fugitive. You're finished. You'll never be king. But God ripped up that notice and placed a crown on his head. Right now, fear is looking at your social security card and laughing. Fixed income, limited resources, declining health. But God is looking at the same evidence and declaring, fixed on my promises, limited only by my will, declining in nothing because my strength is made perfect in their weakness. Here's what fear doesn't want you to know. Every limitation he's been using against you is about to become ammunition in God's hands. Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your activation code. Your health battles aren't evidence of decay, they're proof that you've been through the fire and still standing. Your financial struggles aren't signs of failure, they're qualifications for supernatural provision. Shout it out loud right where you are. Debt cancelled, fear evicted. Say it again, louder. Let every lie that's been renting space in your mind hear its eviction notice. The enemy thought he had you cornered in the final round, didn't he? He thought those wrinkles were white flags. He thought that slower pace was surrender. He thought that Medicare card was a membership to the forgotten club. But he miscalculated severely, because while fear was busy collecting bills, God was busy collecting interest on every prayer you've ever prayed, every tear you've ever cried, every moment you chose faith over fear. And the compound interest on 7 decades of faithfulness is about to be deposited into your account. Fear says, look at your birth certificate, you're running out of time. God says, look at my promises, you're running into your finest hour. Fear says, count your limitations. God says, I'll show you limitless. Fear says, this is your final chapter. God says, this is your greatest chapter. But here's the moment when everything changes. Here's when David picks up the stone. Here's when Moses raises the rod. Here's when you stop running from the debt collector and realize you never owed him anything in the first place. The last bill you thought you owed, that crushing weight of thinking you're too late, too old, too forgotten. It's not just being paid. It was nailed to a cross 2,000 years ago. Every limitation, every fear, every lie about your worth was crucified with Christ. And when he rose, he didn't just conquer death. He conquered every debt fear could ever try to collect from you. The courthouse is empty. The debt collector has fled. And God, your God, is standing at your door with keys to a kingdom where age doesn't diminish, where dreams don't expire, where funding flows like rivers in the desert. But this battle isn't just about you winning. It's about fear losing. And when fear loses in your life, it sends shockwaves through every generational curse, every family pattern, every lie that's been passed down like some twisted inheritance. Your victory today becomes your children's freedom tomorrow. So what will it be, chosen one? Will you keep making payments to a debt that was cancelled at Calvary? Or will you walk into the funding that's been waiting for you since before you drew your first breath? You're tired, aren't you? Bone deep, exhausted from decades of fighting battles nobody else could see. Your shoulders ache from carrying burdens that weren't even yours. Your heart pounds at 2 a.m., not from fear, but from the weight of wondering if you've been forgotten. If God's promises were meant for everyone else but you. But what if I told you something that would stop your restless pacing forever? What if the very enemies that tormented you for years are about to witness something that will silence them into eternity? Psalm 23:5 declares with thunderous authority, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Not after your enemies are gone, not when the coast is clear. Right there, right in front of their shocked faces, God spreads a feast while hell watches in stunned silence. Picture this moment with me. You walk into a room where every demon that whispered you'll never make it is standing against the walls. Every person who betrayed you is frozen in the corner. Every circumstance that tried to destroy you is chained to the floor. And there, in the center of it all, is a table. Not just any table, God's table, set for you. Your place card has your name written in gold ink that never fades. The chair pulled out specifically for your weary bones. And on that table, dear chosen one, what's on that table will revolutionize how you see your future. But let me ask you something that might cut deep into your soul. How many meals have you eaten alone, wondering if anyone cared whether you lived or died? How many nights have you sat at your kitchen table, bills spread out like accusations, calculating whether you could afford both medicine and groceries? How many family gatherings have you attended where you felt invisible, forgotten, like a ghost at your own family's feast? That poverty mindset that's been choking your dreams, that loneliness that's been eating you alive, that fear that whispers you're running out of time. They're all standing against the wall right now, watching God prepare something they can never touch, never steal, never destroy. The table he's setting isn't temporary. This isn't a one-time blessing that'll disappear with the next crisis. This is eternal funding, divine provision that flows like a river that never runs dry. Isaiah 55:1 cries out, "Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come, buy and eat." You've been hungry for more than food, haven't you? Hungry for purpose, hungry for peace, hungry for the certainty that your life actually matters. That table God's preparing, it satisfies every hunger you've carried for decades. Your enemies thought they had the final word when they left you broken. They celebrated when your marriage crumbled. They whispered victory when your health failed. They counted you out when your children walked away. But God has been setting this table the entire time. Every tear you cried seasoned the feast. Every prayer you whispered lit the candles. Every moment you chose faith over despair polished the silverware. What does a divinely funded table look like? Peace so deep that doctors can't explain why your blood pressure dropped 30 points overnight. Health that defies every medical report saying you're too old to recover. Joy that bubbles up from a place the world's disappointments can never reach. Provision that shows up before you even know you need it. But here's what's about to shake you to your core. The seat across from you isn't empty. Jesus himself is sitting there, breaking bread with nail-scarred hands, pouring wine that transforms every bitter memory into sweet victory. He looks into your eyes with infinite love and says, "This is what I meant when I said I'd never leave you. This is what I promised when I said I'd supply all your needs." Your enemies are watching this divine dinner party with their mouths hanging open. The devil himself is pressed against the window, seeing the abundance flowing over your life and knowing there's absolutely nothing he can do to stop it. His time of tormenting you just expired permanently. Luke 14:15 speaks of the blessed who eat at the feast in the kingdom of God. That's not future tense for you anymore. That feast is now. That blessing is today. That kingdom provision is downloading into your life as these words wash over your spirit. The question burning in your chest right now isn't whether this is real. Deep down, you know it is. The question is, are you ready to stop eating scraps and take your place at the table? God prepared specifically for you, because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what happens when God's chosen ones finally understand. They don't have to beg for what's already been prepared. Listen to me, chosen one. The courtroom has delivered its verdict. The judge has spoken your name. But here's the brutal truth that's going to shake you. God's funding is available right now, but it requires your activation. You can't just sit there nodding your head, feeling good about being chosen, and expect heaven's treasury to automatically flood your bank account. That's not how divine economics work. The funding is approved, but the release requires your participation. Why do you think so many believers die broken, and bitter? Because they thought God's promises were automatic. They believed that being chosen meant sitting back and waiting for miracles to fall from the sky like rain. But that's not faith, that's fantasy. Look at the children of Israel. God promised them a land flowing with milk and honey. The funding was approved. The deed was signed in heaven. But what happened? They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because they wouldn't activate what was already theirs. Deuteronomy 1:21 says, "See, the Lord your God has given you the land. Go up and take possession of it, as the Lord promised." Go up and take possession, not sit down and wait for delivery. You've been waiting for God to force His blessings on you, but He's been waiting for you to step into them. The funding isn't stuck in heaven's processing department. It's stuck in your willingness to activate it. Here's what activation looks like. And this isn't theory, this is your roadmap to forever funding. First, trust daily. Not just on Sundays when you feel spiritual, not just when things are going well. Every single morning when you open your eyes, before your feet hit the floor, you declare, "God is funding my life today." Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." All your heart means every beat, every breath, every decision. Second, cast your burdens. You're still carrying weights that God never asked you to bear. 1 Peter 5-7 commands, "Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you." Cast means throw, hurl, get it off you. That financial worry that keeps you up at night, cast it. That health concern that dominates your thoughts, cast it. Those family problems that drain your peace, cast them all. You can't receive God's funding while your hands are full of worry. Empty your hands so heaven can fill them. Third, move on divine nudges without hesitation. That opportunity that scared you, that was God nudging. That person you felt prompted to call, that was divine direction. That business idea that seemed too big, that was heaven downloading strategy. But you hesitated, you overthought, you let fear override faith. When God nudges, you move, period. Joshua 1-9 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Wherever you go includes the scary places, the uncertain paths, the territories you've never explored. Fourth, declare boldly. Your words aren't just sounds, they're spiritual legislation. What you declare with your mouth becomes law in your life. Stop whispering your faith and start declaring your funding. I am forever funded by the God of the universe. My needs are met. My future is secure. My family is blessed. My health is restored. Romans 10:17 says, "Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God." But whose voice do you hear most? Yours. So speak faith over your situation until your own ears convince your own heart. But here's the uncomfortable truth that most preachers won't tell you. Activation has an expiration date. God's offers don't stay on the table forever. The children of Israel had a window to enter their promised land. Some made it. Others died in the desert, still complaining about Egypt. Which one will you be? Right now, at this very moment, Heaven's funding department has your file open. Your account is active. Your blessing is pending one thing: your activation. But if you close this video and go back to business as usual, if you treat this message like entertainment instead of activation, you'll miss the greatest financial transfer of your lifetime. This isn't about getting rich quick. This is about stepping into the wealth that God predetermined for your bloodline before you were born. Ephesians 1:11 says, "In him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will." Your wealth was predestined, your funding was predetermined, but your activation is your choice. The funding is available, but will you activate it? Right now, type in the comments, "Forever funded." Don't think about it, don't analyze it, just type it. Let those two words echo like a trumpet blast through heaven's corridors. Let every angel witness your declaration. Let every demon hear your confidence. And here's your final activation step. Share this message with one person you love. Send it to someone who's been struggling, someone who's been waiting, someone who needs to know they passed the test too. When you bless others with revelation, God multiplies the revelation in your own life. Your forever funding starts the moment you stop talking about it and start walking in it. The question isn't whether God is ready to fund your life forever. The question is, are you ready to activate what's already yours? Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you like precious stones in your heart. First, you passed. Not because you were perfect, but because you persevered. Every tear you shed, every sleepless night you endured, every moment you chose faith over fear, it all counted. Heaven recorded every act of courage when courage seemed impossible. Second, God's funding is not just about money flowing into your bank account. It's about divine provision flowing into every area of your life: your health, your relationships, your peace of mind, your purpose. When God funds your life, He funds all of it. Third, activation is your responsibility. The promises are real, the funding is approved, but you must step into it daily through trust, through casting your burdens, through moving on His nudges, and through declaring His truth over your circumstances. But I need you to know something deeper than knowledge, something that settles in your bones. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who opened the Red Sea, who provided manna in the wilderness, who raised Jesus from the dead, is working in your life right now. Every setback is being turned into a setup. Every closed door is redirecting you to an open window. Every delay is divine timing preparing you for something greater. And right here, in this digital sanctuary we've created together, you have a community. Thousands of believers who understand your struggle, who felt the weight you've carried, who are standing in faith alongside you. We see you. We believe in you. We will pray with you. Now let me ask you this. If God has brought you this far through every valley, every storm, every season that tried to break you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest breakthrough? I want you to comment below and share what God spoke to your heart today. Tell us what area of your life you're claiming His funding over. Ask for prayer. This community will surround you with intercession. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear that they passed too. Your testimony might be the very thing that saves someone else from giving up. If this word has touched your soul, Please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. You're not just subscribing to content, you're joining a family of faith, a community of the chosen who refuse to accept defeat. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for receiving what heaven wanted to pour into you today. Your faithfulness to watch until the end tells me everything I need to know about your spirit. You're ready for what's coming. Now, before you go anywhere, let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority that comes from walking with God for decades. Almighty Father, creator of heaven and earth, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this message today. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles, you've counted every tear they've cried in secret. Tonight, breathe fresh life into their weary bones. Where they feel depleted, restore them. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are engraved on your palms. God, I pray you would activate your funding in their lives, starting right now. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they haven't even thought to ask for. Send divine connections that will accelerate their purpose. Give them wisdom for every decision, strength for every challenge, and peace that surpasses all understanding. Lord, heal their bodies where sickness has attacked. Restore their finances where lack has dominated. Mend their relationships where division has ruled. Fill their hearts with hope where despair has whispered lies. Most of all, Father, let them feel your presence so strongly right now that every doubt dissolves, every fear flees, and every worry transforms into worship. Let them know beyond any shadow of doubt that they are loved, they are chosen, they are forever funded by the King of Kings. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer and release them into their destiny with confidence, with courage, and with the unshakable knowledge that their best days are not behind them, they're ahead of them. Amen. You are forever funded, chosen one. Walk in it, live it, declare it, and never forget you passed.